Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another session of Chat and Chew with Disability Pride PA. I am Vicki Landers, your host. I go by she, they, and I am the Executive Director for Disability Pride PA. Today, I'm so excited to be here with our guest, Imani Barbarin. Also, we have our captioner, our ASL interpreter, Rita Joe. And I just want to let you all know down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see to turn your captions on for the social media platform that you're on. If you need help on how to do that, we do have it on our website under disabilitypridepa.org. Turn on captions for more information. We want to thank our sponsors, our inclusion sponsor, Highmark Whole Care, our Pride sponsors, Disability Pride PA, who we're speaking to today, Inglis, PA Health and Wellness, and AmeriHealth Carteris, and our community sponsor, UPMC. We are going to kick this off. This is who we're going to be speaking to today. Find out more information about Disability Rights Pennsylvania at www.disabilityrightspa.org. And I am going to let you know how this is going to go today. We're going to kick this off. I'm going to do a quick introduction, which I've just done. Look at that. And I'm going to let Imani Barbarin introduce herself. And we're going to do about 10 or 15 minutes of Imani talking about the importance of the disability vote. And then we're going to have some Q&A. And remember that you can put your questions into the comment section. If you say okay, they'll come up live for us and we'll be able to answer them for you. If not, I will get a transcript of all of the questions and I will make sure that I answer them for you. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my friend, Imani Barbarin. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, thank you all for having me. As stated, my name is Imani Barbarin. I am the Communications and Outreach Director for Disability Rights Pennsylvania and have been for the past 3 years. I have to do a little bit of a plug for DRP, Disability Rights Pennsylvania, because I feel like we're such a wonderful organization that not enough people know about. So Disability Rights Pennsylvania is a part of the Protection Advocacy Network within the United States. So our goal, our main mandate is to protect and advocate for the lives of disabled people to live the lives we choose. I use the word we because I myself am disabled and love talking about my identity and the importance of self advocacy and self autonomy. Now we do a multitude of different types of advocacy. We do voting, we do special education. If you have questions, just call us and we will try our best to point you in the right direction. All of our advocates are incredible people. They are very much so invested in what you want for your life. Okay? And I think that is an amazing mandate to have. So today we're talking a little bit about voting, right? We're talking about what do I need to say and do to advocate for myself. When I was a child, my mother took me to all, of my IEP meetings, and I was so excited because my mom always passed the mic to me, right? I was thrilled to be able to have access to all of the toolkits that my school was going to give me, and all the questions that I had could be answered. Um, and a lot of children at my age did not have access to do those things. And thinking about disability, we really do try to make sure that we are directing our own lives. My mom always sat me down and said, "You are your own best advocate. You are the one that knows exactly what you need." And it's incredible to be able to grow in that environment and have a mom that is so incredibly supportive. When we think about advocacy, we often fail to realize just how many pressures are on disabled people to stay silent, to stay silent on the issues that matter. Because we are afraid as a society of what disabled people have to say because it will hold a mirror up to the issues we may or may not be ready to confront. Disability advocacy is incredibly important because it is one of the most expansive areas of advocacy there is. Because anybody could become disabled, because anybody could experience disability either in their life or their family. Disability needs to be at the forefront of every single conversation that we have. When we talk about disability, we need to be affirming the voices and decisions of disabled people. That is our mandate. That is who we are. And that should be who we as a community are trying to be. What do you want to build towards? We watch quite often as disabled voices are discounted with the hopes that, like I said, we're not going to be confronting, that we're not going to be difficult, that we're not going to be too loud. But I want you to be loud. However you communicate, however you want to talk about the world, be loud about it. Be present about it. I want as many disabled people to have the ability to have their voices heard by our politicians, by our communities, and by our society at large. Disabled people have been fighting for years, decades, to be able to be included in the political process. Think about that. Our disabled ancestors thought it important enough to fight for our rights every single day so we have the access that we have now. Now, we have a very long way to go. However, we must honor the sacrifices made of the people that came before us. Disability is so incredibly necessary to have a national dialogue about. I think that disability has been the most impactful areas of legal advocacy and interpersonal advocacy as the pandemic has shifted the way that we think about bodies, lives, and productivity. Who has value? Who has access to change? Who has access to the table in which changes are being made? I want a seat at that table. If you have a wheelchair, I want you to roll up to that table. I want you to have access to every single thing that you want from that table. In some ways, it feels like we are often advocating so hard to get into the spaces and rooms that we want to be in that we can forget why we want to be there. So as you're advocating for yourself, I want you to make sure that you hold tight to who you are and who you want to be and the goals that you have for yourself. There's a reason why you fight for access. There's a reason why you advocate for yourself. And I want you to make sure that you don't ever forget that. I love my disability community truly from the bottom of my heart. And incredibly, they have given me so much joy and so much understanding and compassion. And I think that the way that we see things as disabled people can really shift the way that we see community, inclusion, and care. When we meet the needs of those most vulnerable, we're meeting the needs of all. When we meet the needs of those at multiple intersections of race, disability, gender, sexuality, we are reaching all. If we want to build an inclusive society, not only must disabled people have our voices heard, but people need to listen to us without judgment. People need to be able to challenge us without ableism. And we must be able to dream of futures that are inclusive. What are your dreams for a disabled future? Have we thought about that? One of the things I like to say about oppressive systems or systems that keep you down, right, is the very first thing that they rob from you is an ability to imagine a world without them, without that oppression, without that discrimination. What do you want the world to look like? Or more aptly, more appropriately, what do you want that to feel like? I want to feel free, to feel like I can move about the world and not worry about my accessibility, not worry about the places where I'm not able to get into, not worry about having to have my carrying my groceries up 8 flights of steps in case in just in case an elevator breaks. I don't want to worry about having my rights eroded. I don't want to worry about somebody being able to strip me of my rights, strip me of my ability to vote because they deem me unable to make decisions for myself. I want to live in a world where the decisions of disabled people are met with compassion and understanding and a desire to challenge them when they are not always what other people would make. Disabled people make choices for our lives out of necessity, but how do we make choices for our lives out of joy and abundance? How do we build for a world in which that may exist and can exist? Disability is why we are all here and why we want to have our voices heard. So I want all of you, as you are able, to register to vote, to register for council meetings, to register for coalitions. I want you involved in any way you are able to be involved. I think it is incredible that people want to be advocates, but I want you to be advocates everywhere. I want you to carve out space for yourselves in your community and say, I'm here. I'm here. I'm showing up. And I'm going to make change regardless. You are able to show up in the way that meets your needs, that meets your access. And I think you have so much to contribute to every conversation that you want to be a part of. Let's encourage one another. Let's build community with one another. Because it is through community that we are stronger, more understanding, and more compassionate. It is through community that we build space and joy for one another. And it is through community in which we can look towards a future that includes all of us. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. I just like, I'll show you. G. William Scott said, I live in Philly and I'm a part of the Adapt here.
Oh,
And I know
cool.
they're doing lots and lots of work around the disability vote. Um, he also wanted to let you know that he follows you on TikTok and finds your words very insightful.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scott. I really appreciate that.
Lisa Keller says that we love you.
Ah, thank you so much.
She was also asking that you check out their House bill that they're working on, the Disability Inclusive Curriculum Bill.
Oh, cool. That's
Um,
awesome.
and I can give you that information, Imani.
Yes, I would love that, please.
So I have we're gonna do a little kind of round robin, I guess it's my grandmother always called it, where I'm gonna throw out something around disability, and I just want to hear what you have to say about it.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing is housing.
Yeah. We need way more accessible housing. My goodness. Um, I think I was reading at Homes and Gardens or some home magazine that only 5% of homes are designated as ADA compliant within the United States. That's not enough. Disabled people make up between 19 and 25% of the population. And our inability to live in homes in communities is quite literally life threatening in a lot of cases. We are trying our hardest to expand home and community based services, but we need that funding to make sure that the disabled people can live in the community with uh, the lives they want to lead, with the activities that they want to lead, with the supports that they need. Um, and we need to be talking about this more often, especially in light of the pandemic and how congregate care facilities have been quite dangerous in the midst of this virus. So we need to be building out our community and fulfill the promises that were made in the 70s to disabled people about our ability to live in communities, to not be institutionalized, um, and to be around one another and around you all.
Yeah, so Jimmy Miller said that I've been on the waiting list for housing in Philadelphia, and I was told that the wait is 5 to 8 years before anything would come available.
Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. That's awful.
Mhm. So here's my next. So I'm gonna throw out COVID-19.
Mm. COVID-19. Oh my goodness. So I went on a very long rant very early in the pandemic about how I was livid, angry that everything that disabled people had been asking for prior to the pandemic all of a sudden became disabled. We all of a sudden had digital events, telemedicine, um, and all of these really great resources that we didn't have. And we'd been begging for it for years. I mean, years and years and years. A lot of the technology we are using is not necessarily new. It was just underutilized.
Mm,
On top of that, we have policy that is, counting disabled people out at every turn. And I personally have been very angry watching the back and forth over disabled people's lives and who should and should not be cared for as a part of our own society. And that sets everybody back, right? I think I always say to people, our individual health is a group project, right? Our individual health relies on other people to do the right thing every single day. And that includes driving sober, as well as, wearing a mask. So we really have to build a society that cares about one another, and we don't have one, um, by and large. Uh, yeah, and it's been expensive for a lot of disabled people. A lot of people are having to utilize resources. A lot of people are having to spend down their money in order to apply for Social Security. Um, all of these things are happening on a daily basis, and now it's been increasing exponentially. Um, and our s- our system was slightly overloaded before, and I don't like this idea that we don't have enough resources to go around. I just think we don't prioritize disability in society, and that's why we're here, essentially.
exactly. Yeah, I've heard that there's lots of conversations still, of course, still happening across the board, but
Mhm.
really, for our blind community,
Mm.
and just how inaccessible it has been, and that has not gotten better in any way,
Yeah.
um, across the board. So, um, I just, it's a horrible thing. Um,
Yeah.
and it just, you would think this isn't the first pandemic that we've had.
Nope.
and and I just feel like we're somewhere we're not learning, which is the most important thing for everybody to do every day is to learn something.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're learning. Um,
No, I think there's a great desire for people to just quote unquote go back to normal, but normal didn't work. Normal was not working for people. We have watched in this pandemic as literally every system that we've underfunded and underdeveloped. crumble, or be put under so much stress that it's on the verge of crumbling. Our education system, our health system, our infrastructure, all of those things need to be updated. And I think we as a society are told to settle because there's not enough to go around. We're told to settle. Um, but there is enough to go around. We just need to make it a priority to do that. And I think disabled people can play a really excellent role in making sure that we build that out.
Absolutely. I tell, I received a comment that said that, well, the ADA is there.
Like, you say it like it's a phone number. What are they talking about? Like,
Exactly.
that's
It's
the
there.
worst compliment. So,
But
okay.
it just, to me, my response was, yes, but nobody follows it.
Yeah, I mean, well, to be fair, okay, I must plug DRP again. If you see an ADA violation or you're experiencing one, please call DRP. Vicky has our information again. You can go to our website and contact one of our advocates. But yeah, I mean, you can't call the ADA, but you can call us. Um, but yeah, I think people genuinely think that there's this desire to completely enforce the ADA, and people just kind of think of it as like an option. And that's part of the problem is we view disability advocacy, or excuse me, we view disability allyship and community as charity, when in reality a lot of the accommodations we're asking for are life and death for people.
Mhm.
Our people's ability to get groceries, to go get their hair cut, to just live their lives. And I think it's a great problem that people feel like they have no incentive to solve. But we are all in this together, and we have to.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you about um, employment.
Mm. So, employment. Okay. So a lot of things were lost during the pandemic. Employment rates were one of them. Employment dipped extremely low. Disabled people, when the pandemic started, were some of the first people that were being laid off. And a lot of people have not recovered um, their jobs from the beginning of the pandemic. Simultaneously, we have a whole new crop of disabled people, disabled from COVID, who are now navigating a system of ableism and barriers that they've never had before. I think employment is important to the disability community because that is a place where you can get to know people and build connections, and also have the resources to sustain yourself. But at the same time, disabled people are often between a rock and a hard place with income limits, and the fact that a lot of services are income based and things like that. So, like, we need, like, when I say we need a complete overhaul, I mean in every facet. And it's very difficult too for disabled people who are transitioning from high school or from more support services to have um, advocates and assistants and people to help around in their job search, in their job execution, and things like that. So, um, employment is a very big topic. I also, if you're on Social Security, I recommend contacting the Social Security office to see if there's any programs to make sure to help you get to work and things like that. Um, yeah, and people do wind up leaving their jobs, like you say, uh, to because people don't really respond to disability needs all that well. And we need to build capacity, and we need to make sure that people understand um, how disability works and who the disability community is and what their responsibility to us is, because they very much so do have a responsibility to the disabled people that they employ.
Yes. So there are a couple comments in the chat that I just wanted to let you know.
Hmm.
So one of our folks is taking care of disability pride while we're here. And this is what they had to say, that they ended up having to quit their job because their employer wasn't centering disability during the pandemic and felt unsafe.
Mm. I'm sorry. That's not okay. That's not okay. That it's not okay for an employer to do that to you. It's not okay for you to feel like you have to make that decision and feel like you have to forego your ability to pay your bills, your ability to, have resources to survive from month to month. I'm very sorry that that happened to you. Yeah, and if you are in that situation, I again would have called DRP and see what their advice may or may not be. So, um, don't hesitate to reach out on those things.
And just uh, so everybody knows that this was not our organization that they
Yeah.
had to leave.
No, like, wait, no, no, I figured it was somebody else. I do not think Vicky would do that to anybody.
Never. That is not the way that you become inclusive folks.
True.
You have to be able to. Always say pivot, and so that
Mhm.
way you as you pivot, you start to include a better, wider version of the community that you want.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I
Mhm.
think the important thing too, if you want to do disability advocacy, if you want to um, be uh, be inclusive of the disability community is to listen to diverse voices within the disability community.
Absolutely.
We're not all the same. Do not always have the same perspectives. We do not always have the same needs. But understanding how other people navigate their disability is incredibly important for if you want to be advocating on a greater level or on a broader level throughout the state, throughout the country. Because the more we understand about each other, the more we can build in inclusion for all of us.
Absolutely. Yes. G. William Scott said that the ADA is a great tool, but so many people and companies find many loopholes in avoiding to complying with it. And churches and other faith-based institutions are exempt from inclusion in the act.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really disheartening, because these are spaces where community is built. Um, yeah, and it can be really harmful and depressing to encounter quite often.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw out another thing for you. Um,
Mhm.
long-term care.
Yeah, so long-term care facilities, so we do how do I put this? We do monitorings of long-term care facilities to make sure that disabled people are having their needs met in these facilities. Um, but again, we wanna make sure that disabled people have the knowledge, that they have the access to the community, that they have the choice to live in the community, and that it's up to them, it's up to you what you want your environment to be and look like. And so our advocates are constantly, talking with disabled people in these long-term care facilities and making sure that everything is in place. And I think that it's amazing, and prior to doing this work, I didn't really know who was monitoring these places or if they were at all. But our organization does an amazing job at making sure that people in long-term care have somebody to talk to, have somebody to to call. And sometimes our advocates just like to talk to people, like just to let people know that somebody's thinking about them. But yeah, I think again, we have to make sure that people know what their rights are and know who can advocate on their behalf.
Hmm. Absolutely. So tell me, so there's a lot of talk, and one I thought, so you are the perfect person to answer this question because of the conversations that you have, the conversations that you have, whether people like it or not. Um, um, but also, it's so that there's a lot of conversations around somebody asking for an accommodation and whether that's the terminology that is that is the best terminology for us to be using as an accommodation. Does that make sense
Um,
to you?
Is
Some
the question like, is that the right word, or should we be calling it something else? Is that what you mean?
so there are folks that are out there that say that the word shouldn't be accommodation because it feels like, again, it's something like that's something that we're putting on other folks because we're asking for it. Or whether it should be something more of an accessibility need.
Um,
I don't like the word need in that sentence, but it's something that has been thrown out there.
yeah. So, if I'm understanding your question correctly, what you're asking is, we're asking people to accommodate us rather than give us what we need. Is
Correct.
that like that's the debate, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think what often happens is that we often fall into the language of the law in order to express what we need from people, and that may not always be the right fit. Accommodation, comes from reasonable accommodation under the ADA, and that's something that we, utilize every single day in disability advocacy. But I haven't really thought all that much about whether or not it's the appropriate word. I guess I think, to a certain extent, you all are right. What I worry about though is us changing the language too rapidly or so differently that accommodation non-disabled people don't understand what we're saying when we use a different word than accommodation, and they don't. No offense, okay. No offense to non-disabled. Okay. Anyway, no offense to non-disabled people, but they don't pay very much attention to a lot of conversations that are happening around disability. So if we were to change the word, it would have to be like a robust campaign around changing it. And to be fair, I see the merit to doing so. Personally, I can't speak for the organization on this one because I don't know, but but personally, I see the merit to changing it and saying, maybe something like an inclusive writer or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, what are my inclusion needs? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like I would have to workshop the names like real hard because
Mhm.
like nothing I'm coming up with I like.
Yeah, that's been these conversations that are happening, and people are like, I don't want it to be an accommodation because you're not accommodating, like it feels like you're still like you're having to do something special for me.
Yeah, and, like, maybe something like access points might be the right word, like, because like, it's like bullet points, "Here's my access points. I need this." You know what I mean? Something like that might be helpful,
Mhm.
but again, like, I would wanna focus group this, I would wanna workshop it, I'd wanna have, like, a think tank about it,
Let's
uh
do it.
yeah, because like, I from like I said, we if we were to change the language around accommodations, it would have to be a more robust campaign. It would have to be a lot larger than some interpersonal conversations, which have merit. No doubt. I do think that these conversations are important. But in terms of organizing it and kind of rolling it out to people, we
Mhm.
would need more people to be involved in all of that together.
Absolutely. I have, um, being event planner, um, I have started to use, accessibility accommodation
Okay. Yeah.
just because of the fact that I've had some folks that have joined because I invite everybody in.
Yeah.
Some of the you some people don't understand when you ask that question about an accommodation, what that actually like that there's a reason why we're asking that. It's not just like, "Oh, can you make it a little later?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, no, that's not the thing we're asking, like, it's more like, not necessarily later, but would you like a chair by the door? Like that type of access need. Uh,
Yes.
and yeah, people are like, I want, a hot chocolate." But yeah, and they like sometimes people, especially non-disabled people, like to go into the special treatment they think we get and be like, "Oh, I want all the
Yes.
perks," and we're like, "What perks?"
Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, I do see merit to the conversation. Um, yeah, but again, we would have to be very intentional about it.
Right, absolutely. That's what reason why we just started to have these conversations around it because of the fact that I had some guy told me that he wanted us to accommodate him by getting him a hotel so he could be here. And I was just like,
That's not no.
so that's where like I just went down a rabbit hole with the
Yeah.
whole thing. So switching back,
Mhm.
there's been a lot of conversations around conservatorships.
Mhm.
Do you have any like, okay, legally, where um, it's a really tough conversation.
It is. Yeah. Um, Here's what I will say.
Okay.
I think I am very much so a proponent that disabled people should have the right to direct our own lives. And there are much less restrictive tools like supported decision making that could help disabled people make decisions. I think what a lot of society likes to do is insulate disabled people from risk. Um, and we all take risks. We all assume risk on a daily basis, even from just leaving our homes. Um, and I think we have built a system that keeps disabled people from it, but also restricts movement about society as well, um, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So I personally am not a proponent of conservatorships. DRP will never recommend them. Um, and we do that work every day. And there's so many advocates that are just pushing the forefront of conservatorship advocacy and making sure that disabled people um, can direct our own lives and uh, do what we desire to do.
And thank you, because of course that has been, of course it's it's been very public because there's rich people, like famous people, but this has been going on forever.
Right. Well, what I will say is this is that one of the things that these cases are highlighting is a lack of public knowledge around disability law and disability in general. And what I mean by that is a lot of what I've talked to disability advocates with DRP have said is like you want to make sure that your attorney, that people are advocating for you, have a knowledge of disability law, and not everybody has that. And we kind of think that any lawyer, any advocacy avenue is going to be the best there is. But again, there are that these women in the news that have been in conservatorships for 10, 15 years have been getting the runaround when it's disability advocacy that's needed because um, they like to separate disability from the person because that's the goal. That's why they're in the conservatorship is the disability. And no, it's the systemic barrier that we've built is the reason. So always make sure you're engaging disability lawyers and disability law advocates
Yes.
because they will be the ones that are best equipped to answer your questions about conservatorships.
Thank you. You know, there's just so much talk about it, and
Yeah.
you know, it upsets me because now people are just thinking about it,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's
That's
been here forever. So
it's like what I think something a lot around it's been a long day. I think something along the lines of 1.3 million people in the United States are in a conservatorship or guardianship.
mhm.
Um, People are not allowed to vote in certain states when they're on those. It restricts a lot of your voice.
You're
However
independent.
you vote. Yeah, like in your independence.
Yeah, like it's almost you have no voice at all about anything when when these things take place, and that's why I like the, what did you call it, support based,
Support system. Did I say? I don't know. I
the
said
the, the and now I can't think of what it is, it's the the way that it should be happening instead of the
Oh, supported decision making.
yes,
That
thank
yeah.
you.
Okay. I was like, what word did I use? I use a lot of words.
Yes, I know. I was trying to come up with that. That's a much better way of how things can happen
Yeah.
without making somebody lose their independent thought.
Yeah, and we do have resources on conservatorships, guardianships, estate planning on our website
Oh,
at
good.
on disabilityrightspa.org. So yeah, that's all.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to show it again so people can
Mhm,
see that. So tell me, in Pennsylvania this year,
mhm.
it's a very important election cycle. What are the things that we, the disability community, need to be thinking about?
We need to be thinking about a future with COVID. Um, a
Uh-oh.
future-
Everybody's phones are going to go off because there's a security message.
okay. All right. Okay, cool. Um, what we need to be thinking about is policy as it relates to COVID and disabled people's access to community spaces. Um, Housing is huge as well.
Mhm.
Um, Making sure we like there's a ton of disabled advocates online, especially that are advocating for an increase in Social Security, because the cost of living is exorbitant, and disabled people are struggling. Um, and now mine's going off. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't even imagine what it is like to live on the numbers that they give to folks on supplemental secu- security, the SSI.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
hate
it's
initials.
yeah, I'm like, um, yeah, I think we really need to reevaluate our whole system. And it's hard to pinpoint one or two things. Um, but it's like all of them at once. We
Mhm,
need better supports in the community. We need better voting access and to make sure that having access to your ballot remotely is codified into law. We
mhm,
need we need to make sure that disabled people um have access to food stamps and resources and websites that are accessible, and Wi-Fi that's affordable, like everything, because disability is tied to everything. Because
absolutely.
disabled people are part of every community and have every need that everybody else has, and more. So yeah, it feels like it's all at once. It feels like drinking out of a fire hose. Whenever people ask me that question, I'm like, which one do I highlight like first?
But
Um,
that's somebody asked me. I work with another community based um, organization that is doing work around voting.
mhm,
And they as a community haven't done it well. So,
mm, yeah.
so they of course have asked, which is a first step.
Yeah, yeah, definitely valid.
It's a first
Mhm,
step, and so they were, I guess they're looking to, oh, what does an accessible um, voting, voting place look like? And
mm,
I said, there are basics to basically like all. I'm like, it's a building that's ADA compliant,
mhm,
you know,
yeah,
that I'm like, that's just the pure basic. They're like, oh well, we made sure that wheelchairs can get in. Okay,
mhm.
and I'm just like, that's very small minded.
Yeah, I like to tell people that accessibility, like in any space, is kind of like isn't really like a one or two choices, it's a menu.
Yes,
And you can pick, mix and match, combine whatever needs that make your time in that space accommodating and accessible to you. And so many people think of it as like one or two things, and then they're like, we're good. And that's just not true. And I think a lot of it has to do with budgeting. I think a lot of it has to do with this perception of people see like 2 to 3 disabilities represented and think that that's the end all be all. But it's not. It's more expansive than that, and so the accommodations have to be more expansive.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah.
I I just I love talking to you. I love everything that you say.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Oh,
And but I did want to be able to plug what's going on with you. You know what's happening for you coming up.
yeah, so I am leaving DRP in April, and I will be doing more online work and more creative disability advocacy. I just want to increase the way that disabled people are represented, and I want disabled people to feel like their authenticity is shining through, because we don't get that enough. And I also want to build out spaces for joy, because the last couple of years have been really tough, and we don't get enough time to just have joy, build joy, and be kind to one another. So that's what's next for me.
Yes, I'm so excited. We have Imani has talked to us. We talked to her uh, about coming out to Disability Pride, not only Philadelphia this year on June 11th, and emceeing the event for us,
Mm-hmm.
but also our two new events. One in the Disability Pride Pittsburgh event that's happening July 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
And then Disability Pride Central PA, which will be held in Harrisburg on October 3rd,
Yes,
right on the Capitol complex. So very excited about that. And
that'll be fun.
yes, I'm so excited to be able to have Imani, join us in this fun that we put on, and seeing how we could do so much more together. So, are
Yeah.
there any last questions that anybody has? I see lots of hand clapping, then there's do it. People
Thank
say yes.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you from Anne. Um,
Thank you.
there's just everybody seems to be extremely happy, of course, with all of the things that you're doing. And everybody knows where to find you, but make sure that you tell everybody where to find you in case there is somebody who doesn't know how to find you.
Sure. I am crutches underscore and underscore spice on TikTok and Instagram, and I am at Imani, IMANI underscore Barbarin, BARBARIN at on Twitter. I was about to say I was about to give out some. I was like, wait, what? I didn't. I started and then I didn't know where I was going, and then I had to redirect for a second. and
Um,
of course, please, please, please visit disabilityrightspa.org. We have so many resources. I look at them daily. There's so many resources for you. If you have questions, please call us. There are so many people that are willing, ready, and able to help.
Thank you again for joining us today. I hope everybody enjoyed our session, and have learned some things. Make sure that you're going out to visit the disabilityrightspa.org website to get some more information on all of this conversation. Make sure that you are following Imani on her journey, her next journey. Can't wait. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
And then also, everybody, make sure that you tune in next month on the 25th, April 25th. We are going to be talking to the Ethos Cannabis folks on medical marijuana. So, very excited about that conversation. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.